Welcome to Trailblazers. I'm your host, Melody Bradford. Today I have the privilege of speaking with Tom Stoudt, Executive Director of the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority, the man responsible for guiding Lehigh Valley International Airport, ABE, Queen City Airport, and Braden Airpark through periods of remarkable growth, challenge, and transformation. Tom's journey is rooted in aviation, operations, safety, and long-term planning. With more than 25 years of experience at the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority, from ground handling to senior planning roles, he's overseen billions in capital improvement and investment, a surge in passenger traffic, major infrastructure projects, and partnerships that drive economic growth across our region. Today, we'll explore how he got here, how ABE has evolved under his leadership, the partnerships that make it all possible, and what's next as the airport continues to grow as a regional gateway and economic engine. Tom, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Melody.
So, Tom, take us back to the beginning. Tell me a little bit about what first drew you to aviation, and how did your early life or education set you on a path toward working in airports?
Sure. It's a great question, and I think when I think about what things were like for me growing up, there was a lot of interest that I had in understanding how things worked and a lot of taking things apart. A lot of my toys ended up in pieces, and mostly because I was so curious about how things fit together and how they worked. And that, I think, sort of transformed over time, and I was always interested in how mechanical things worked. When that turned into a passion, working on cars, which sort of evolved into what was the next challenge. And it was probably if I could work on cars and fix cars and think about those systems, it was really about the next more complex system, which might have been aircraft. So I was always interested in transportation.
Sure.
And I think for me, aircraft were really complex machines, and I was always amazed by them. And so really understanding how they worked is something that's always been part of who I am. Is just really loving to understand the way things click. And so getting into those things, researching them, I think that's really what the passion for aviation is about. It's really just a remarkable network of a lot of systems, a lot of equipment, and a lot of accuracy. And I think that was what always drew me in that direction.
Mm-hmm. And so when did you first join the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority? And can you walk us through the progression from your earlier roles to becoming what is now executive director? What were the turning points and what motivated that transition?
So I started with the Airport Authority in 1995, and I had originally from the area. I had gone to school for aviation management. During the time I was in school, I had done an internship with the Airport Authority, and I fell in love with airport management. And I was really excited to come home and maybe seek an opportunity here at home with the authority. There weren't opportunities immediately available with the authority, and so I ended up doing ground handling of aircraft for Delta Airlines and Midway Airlines at the time. And so I was doing a lot of work, different shifts, odd shifts, and at the time, that also involved sleeping in my truck in between shifts and
my word.
Just being available
Wow.
to all the different shifts and demands of the operation, but always excited about being able to plug in and be accountable and just be around aviation. And so that's really how I really kept my ear to the ground about what was happening at ABE. And when an opportunity developed later that year, I applied for the position as an operations specialist and was able to join the authority at that point. Yeah. So it's really been a fun journey, kind of getting to this place. But I've gotten the privilege of being able to sit in a number of different capacities with the organization, and I think that's really helped me understand the operations so well.
Global view, yeah.
Certainly being able to be in an operations capacity, which is really responsible for a lot of regulatory compliance, a lot of the safety and efficiency of operations, the airline activity. and then pivoting a bit into planning and sort of thinking about long-range planning as an airport planner for the organization is really about the strategic vision and infrastructure investments. And understanding the operation helps you think about what investment is needed to enhance safety and efficiency for the airport. So I think a lot of those things really kind of leaned into each other pretty well, and then had an opportunity to take a more leadership role as a director of the operations and safety team, and then ultimately was asked to serve in this capacity as executive director.
Oh, wow. So an investment. Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Because, wow, I mean, if our listeners have not been to the airport lately, they need to get over there. Over your time leading the Lehigh-Northampton Airport Authority, how has Lehigh Valley International Airport evolved? And both in terms of infrastructure and service, one of the major projects was the new TSA checkpoint and terminal connector, funded in part by the bipartisan infrastructure law. Can you tell us about that project, why it was essential, and what it means for future capacity and air travel and transportation in general?
Sure, sure. Yeah, the TSA approached us in 2016 and told us they needed a third screening lane based on our activity level. And our activity level grew in 17 and 18 and 19. So again, we were really climbing with activity, but we really didn't have the checkpoint screening capacity. We also had sort of an interesting layout of a terminal complex, and we had a lot of vertical elevation changes for passengers as they made their way from basically ticket counter to takeoff. And so the screening checkpoint was originally built in that terminal complex in an underground tunnel. And
I remember that.
It was never designed when that terminal was built for a screening checkpoint. That technology didn't exist, and really the screening of passengers the way we do it today wasn't even close to happening back then. And so as the operation evolved, the facility never did, and we really just outgrew it from an efficiency standpoint, from a capacity standpoint. So it was really time to look at adding a whole new connection in between that gate concourse and the main terminal. And that's really what started us thinking about what the checkpoint needed to look like, how that needed to work, and how to eliminate some of the pinch and pain points in the facility and passenger flow dynamics in the terminal.
Right.
And that's really what we talked about as a team, is how do we simplify that journey? How do we make sure when I'm showing up at the airport, it's a very streamlined experience getting through the facility with minimal vertical level changes to get to the gate and back. So that's really what drove the design, and that was a multi-year design and a multi-year construction project. So it was a significant project for the airport. We had so many issues with capacity of that two-lane checkpoint as we were continuing to grow as the region grew. And being able to get people through the airport efficiently is key. That's really significant for the airport to be able to make sure we can handle these volumes. And so that was a great project for the airport. It's also one of those projects where we wanted to ensure we had capacity for the future, and building enough capacity for a fourth screening lane in the future is what we were able to do, so that as TSA needs additional capacity as the Valley continues to grow, as people use fly local and use the airport, we want to be able to continue to grow with the community.
Yeah, and I have to say, I would say that the airport is probably one of the most underrated resources that we have here in the Lehigh Valley. I mean, it's a pleasure to go through that whole process. I mean, air travel can sometimes be really tough, right?
For sure.
But ABE just makes it so seamless and so nice. It's like you get it. I took a plane to Nashville recently to visit my best friend, and honestly, even with the government shutdown happening at the time, I think I was through it in 5 minutes. It was unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really great.
That's great.
ABE recently broke a record through making the 1 million passenger mark in 2024, the first time since 2004. That's a historic milestone. What factors are driving that growth, and how does the airport manage that seasonal surge and what investments are planning going to preparing for peak travel? Now, we're recording right now, and it's going to be Thanksgiving next week, so this will actually air afterwards. But how are you guys preparing right now,
Sure.
for that surge?
Sure. Yeah. So this is a really busy travel season. We anticipate it's going to be similar, maybe a little bit up in terms of activity level from last year's Thanksgiving holiday. And so it's really a function of making sure that we have the staffing in place, making sure that we have equipment up and running and we're ready to go. But the staff provides such great service at the airport, and we're able to continue to see that demand. But what's driving it, I think, is what we were just talking about, which is the growth of the Lehigh Valley. We have Allegiant as a great partner with recently 11 nonstop destinations. They just added Fort Myers as another nonstop at ABE.
Yes.
Great partnerships with American, Delta, and United, serving their hubs and providing all that connectivity. It's really about people also choosing to fly local, like yourself. You're just talking about Nashville and getting down to see a friend and having a convenient opportunity to do that right from your own location instead of having to travel out of the area to catch a flight. So this is really about people choosing to fly local, and we want to continue to have a facility that serves the community, and that's really what this is about.
And I have to say, just a little plug. Interestingly enough, another friend was traveling to the same destination, decided to go with a different airport in a different state. I won't name who that was.
Sure.
Take a different airline, and got an announcement or an alert that basically she would have to essentially make 2 connections on a different airline in order to be able to get to Nashville. And I said, wow. And so we compared prices, and you guys were cheaper. And I was like, wow. I was like, so let that be for our listeners a little lesson. So do your homework,
Absolutely.
because you just never know.
Well, and to that point, we have a cost calculator on our website. It helps people really do the shopping. You can plug in the airfare out of ABE. You can plug it in for some competitor airports in the area. And considers things like your parking costs and other things. So you can really kind of look at the total trip cost as well as your drive times and things, and just understand what kind of value you might have by flying local.
Yes. So cargo has been a huge part of ABE's growth as of late as well. With rising air freight volumes and the airport's location in the freight corridor, how are you planning for logistics and infrastructure needs, and how's that all working? Because I see a lot of prime planes, in the sky, and
Yes.
we're approaching the holiday season. I know most of my stuff is coming from Amazon, so talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, we've seen just tremendous growth in air cargo activity. And again, no secret that the Lehigh Valley is central to a lot of these freight and logistics corridors. And the fact that within a day's drive you can get to a third of the U.S. population from the Lehigh Valley is significant. And that, that connectivity to a lot of these major cities in this area in the Northeast is also part of what's driving it. But we've seen, just in terms of what's happened at ABE in the last 10 years, about 800% growth in air cargo volume.
Wow.
Through the airport. And we're on pace this year to set yet another new record. Over 300 million pounds of air cargo in 2025 is what we're anticipating. So how do we keep up with it? It's been challenging. We've made definitely some infrastructure enhancements at the facility, but there's no more room at the existing location to continue to grow the air cargo activity. So we're actually, we were fortunate to receive a grant award for $40 million through the U.S. DOT's infra program to help us build a new cargo complex at ABE. And so this will be a multi-year, large-scale project that builds all sorts of pavement and building infrastructure to support that cargo growth, and making sure, again, this isn't about build it and they will come. This is really about it's here. How are we keeping up with the demand and making sure we can continue to provide the infrastructure that all of the operators need to continue to serve the demand here?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, there's some exponential growth happening there. It's I was curious to see how you guys were managing it because you have, the influx of passenger travel and then, of course, cargo as well.
Yes.
ABE is often described as an economic engine for the Lehigh Valley. Can you talk about some of the key partnerships with local government, businesses, and development authorities that support that mission?
Sure.
That's been pretty critical lately.
It's absolutely critical. I mean, certainly we are a community asset, and being part of the community means we have a lot of partnerships, a lot of great working relationships within the Lehigh Valley. First and foremost, our federal and state legislators. Having great partnerships with them means that they understand what the airport is doing and what those projects are in terms of things like we just talked about, the need to add more capacity, more facilities, more investment to handle what's happening in terms of the Lehigh Valley's growth. So those are key partnerships. I think about, making sure we're really working with the chamber, with Discover Lehigh Valley, with LVEDC, again, great partners in the region in terms of what's happening from a business and economic development standpoint, and that we're plugged into those conversations to support those in any way we can. The other piece is working with a lot of other organizations to make sure we are part of this community. And we're working with a lot of schools and universities with different education and aviation exposure programs, so people understand all of what really happens inside of the fence. A lot of that can be a mystery at times, what it takes to really operate an airport and the number of personnel and jobs available. So I think, from an economic development standpoint, it's great to have those conversations. I also think as part of the community, we want to make sure we're engaging with places like the ARC of Lehigh and Northampton counties and making sure that we have programs like our Wings for All program that support initiatives to make sure travel's accessible. Good Maps was a product we just launched at ABE this year.
It's wonderful, yeah.
And again, going back to that accessibility piece, lowering the stress level, ease and convenience for all customers. So we're looking at programs like those and making sure that we're finding ways, partnering with our hospital networks to bring amenities like our children's play area and all of those types of services are right here and right in the terminal complex, or making the experience easy and convenient. And that's really key for us as we look at all of those partnerships. It's so key that we're doing all of these things. So it's a lot of work, but it's a great really end product for us to be able to say not just that we're a community asset, but we truly are engaged in the community.
And can you just touch on, you had mentioned the new mapping system, for those that are disabled, but I also think that, I have my glasses on, right? So if I need a little bit of help, if I can't see well or if I can't hear well, can you just explain what that is to the listeners?
Sure. So Good Maps is an indoor navigation product, and really this is a pretty exciting launch for us. We're the first airport in Pennsylvania to have it. But it really allows people from an app on their phone to get point directions, step-by-step directions through the terminal complex to every place they need to go. All you need to do is pick up your phone. It uses your camera. It scans the room, figures out exactly where you are, anywhere in the terminal complex, no matter which floor you're on. And it gives you directions. If you can't use stairs or escalators, you let that know as a setting in the app, and it sends you to all the elevators you need. So it really navigates anyone through the facility, and it's also set up to have multi-language support. So I think over 20 languages in there. So while we have excellent signage for wayfinding guidance in the terminal, it's all in English. So if you're showing up at the facility and that's really not your principal language, maybe having that multilingual support is all you need to get your directions through the facility. Yeah. So it's a great new feature, but again, one of those that the team is constantly looking at ways to enhance service, and that's so key for us.
Yeah, and definitely a wonderful tool to make travel, less stressful for sure. So the Airport Authority has a multi-year capital improvement plan and long-term vision. What are the main priorities in your current strategic plan, and how do you balance growth with some of those operational realities?
Yeah, so there's always a lot more need than we are, able to find resources for it. We're certainly very, we work hard. We work really hard to find funding opportunities, grant opportunities for a lot of the infrastructure projects. Mm-hmm. We don't receive funding for the operation. Mm-hmm. It's really being self-sufficient, financially self-sufficient is the key for us. And looking for opportunities for grants for investment into the facilities, into that infrastructure. And so, for us, it's really where are those opportunities and how can we continue to find new grants? I just mentioned the infra program was a brand new grant program we had never applied for. And we were successful in finding $40 million for that. In the next 5 years, we're spending probably another $200 million in infrastructure investment, and that's probably about $10 million a year for us, but a lot of that through grant funding. But there's a continued investment, and there is no shortage of infrastructure investment in a campus like an airport where you have 1,000 acres. One of the projects that people probably don't know about, even though you just flew out of the airport recently, is our primary runway rehabilitation program. So without a runway, we can't really serve aircraft, and we're not much of an airport. So for us, it's a key asset at the airport. For the last 10 years, just about, we've been planning, designing, and constructing improvements to that runway. All told, about an $85 million investment into that pavement infrastructure that a lot of us probably take for granted when we land and take off at the airport, but so key to everything that keeps us serving those passenger and cargo aircraft. So there's a lot of continued investment, a lot of maintenance and rehabilitation that goes into the facilities every year, and having a great plan and a program in place where we're foreshadowing and anticipating what those investments need to be over time is key. So a lot of thought goes into what has to happen and sequencing into funding cycles and grant opportunities. So it's a lot of work behind the scenes to kind of connect the dots.
Pull it all together.
It is.
Yeah. What challenges have you personally faced as executive director, whether from economic cycles, regulatory pressures, or operational threats? And how have you navigated them? I mean, that's no small feat from a leadership perspective. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. Even prior to this role, I was at the airport during 9/11. So seeing a lot of different challenges, and aviation is usually an industry that can really be hit hardest in some of these types of economic downturns. One of the first things people might choose to do is to cut discretionary travel, air travel. And so, those are types of things that can really affect the airport. And so, we've weathered a lot of those over the years. I've seen a number of them. We just made our way through our second federal government shutdown since I've been in this role. And we just, not that long ago faced a COVID-19 pandemic. So I think it's back to basics. When you're in these, again, you circle back to the safety and the efficiency of the operation is always number one, and making sure that aircraft, vehicles, passengers are safe. And how do we do that? In terms of making sure that we're handling those things as the one-off, we can do that, but how do we build facilities and build redundancies so that when that next one shows up, we're not in the same exact position we were
prepared.
Before.
Yeah.
We're better prepared. I think, when we built our terminal connector and TSA checkpoint, we added medical grade air purification into that space. And there's a pandemic mode that we can put that system in the event that we face some other pandemic or contagion. We have capabilities in the system now. So it's really taking that situation and really figuring out a way to pivot and add some functionality that maybe helps us cope with the next challenge a little bit easier.
Yeah. Wow. Who knew? You're sitting there, you're having a cocktail or a coffee, and you're waiting for your plane, and you don't even know everything that goes on in the back. Looking ahead, what excites you most about the future of Lehigh Valley International Airport? You just announced a new route,
Yes.
more cargo, expanded infrastructure. What's coming next?
Yeah. Well, all of it is exciting for sure. We did mention the cargo development. I think in terms of what's next, from a growth perspective, we are, really challenged at this point with parking. And so the next project for us is a parking structure. And we're working through about 60% design of that product right now. So this is really about getting a new parking structure, new parking deck at the airport. And that's exciting. Anytime we're building infrastructure, that's exciting. I still get excited about the new runway that people don't tend to really see. But there's always, I always say we're sort of always under construction at the airport. There's always something that we're enhancing, we're rehabilitating, or we're just building new. I think the other project, not a project that we, the Airport Authority, are building, but one of our partners is building, is a new hotel. And we're excited. That project kicked off earlier this year, this summer. And we're really excited. It's a Courtyard by Marriott, about 145 rooms, right at the airport. Beautiful view of the airfield. I might have to just start living there. I'm not sure. But that actually is scheduled at this point to open in the first quarter of 2027. So they're on schedule. If you're driving past on Airport Road, you can see it right from Airport Road. It's really starting to take shape, and it's exciting. So there's a number of projects, and it's great to see all of that growth. A lot of work happening in the terminal area with parking and hotel, and I think that's exciting because that's really public facing, and people can see a lot of activity.
Exciting time at the airport. When you reflect on your time as executive director, what legacy do you hope to leave, not just for the airport, but for the Lehigh Valley and future aviation leaders?
Certainly for me personally, I think I would hope I'm leaving it better than I found it. Certainly there was a lot of infrastructure investment that needed to happen. Part of the reason we've been able to do that is because we've been so successful in finding funding and being really assertive about talking about the needs of the airport with our elected officials and finding funding opportunities for critical projects. I think that to me is key, that hopefully people feel like the team really did a great job putting this airport in really great position to grow with the Lehigh Valley. And for future aviation leaders there, I hope maybe we can hand them a bit of a plan or a blueprint. And projects that are easily expandable, whether it's the fourth lane for screening. We've really tried in every project to look at growth and how those different projects could evolve in the future to make it easy to expand them and accommodate the Lehigh Valley as it continues to grow and we continue to serve the community. So I think that I hope could be the legacy, is that we've left it in a really good place for future generations.
I think that's without a doubt, and honestly, probably one of the best practice examples that are out there for a regional airport. Tom, I appreciate you sharing your journey, your challenges, and your vision, what you're building at ABE, not just as an airport, but as a regional cornerstone, is a reminder that leadership in transportation is more than moving people. It's about connection, growth, and economic stewardship. To all our listeners, airports touch more lives than we often realize. They are places of connection, commerce, and community. The next time you fly in or out of Lehigh Valley International, or even pass by or think it's about its cargo operations, know that there's a big vision and a lot of dedication that goes behind everything you see. Thank you for joining us on Trailblazers. I'm Melody Bradford. Until next time, keep looking skyward, keep thinking big, and keep blazing your own trail. Thanks again, Tom.
Thank you.